Okay, I'm ready. Hey guys, welcome. My name is Janelle J, and I wanted to come to you guys today to talk through my testimony, I guess. To preface, I was never one to truly believe in the Bible. I was not one to believe in Jesus. I thought that the stories in the Bible, from what I had heard, all seemed too outlandish. Why would you be in a whale's mouth for X amount of days? Why would you create Lucifer if you're all knowing? Why would you create all of these things that you know that the human race that you've created were going to be flawed in? Like, why would you do all of these things? It's almost so arrogant. And I remember thinking, growing up, there's no way that I'm going to believe in this book. I mean, I'd rather believe in an Omar Tyree type of book, or one of those, Eric Jerome Dickey type of books, which is crazy to say out loud now, right? Because now I know better. But during that time, I just remember thinking, the people who are so engulfed in the Bible, in religion, in Jesus, we're all within one similar category. They were all the same to me. And so I would just ignore it. I would just be like, nope, don't want to hear it. I don't care what you got to say. All I know is you're wrong. I know that there is a greater power that literally are pulling the strings on how we operate on a day-to-day. But I don't know if it's God. I really don't know if it's the universe, because even the Native Americans, they honor nature. So I was like, I don't know if it's Mother Nature, if it's God, or if it's just the universe aligning and all of those things. So for me, it always just felt like I had to defend my own positioning amongst everyone that was kind of in this brainwash mentality. That's how it felt to me. But in my life, I have had so many moments of coincidences that today I know it's not a coincidence anymore. And just to backtrack, 2 months ago, I experienced something so transformative that I can't really explain it, but to try to convey it on film and convey it to you guys. If you're looking to get closer to God, if you're looking for a stronger relationship, if you're just looking to just learn about him even a little, if you feel like your soul is pulling you there and you're not quite there because you don't want to be the person talking about Jesus and God all the time, and that feels so embarrassing, I hear you. If anyone hears you, I hear you. But for me, I had this awakening 2 months ago. I was sitting on this beautiful patio that my husband and I built together 2 summers ago. We're about to be coming up on our second summer. And I remember I was sitting on the patio, I was drinking my wine, and my children were playing not even 20 feet away in the living room, which is right here next to our sliding door. And I just got this overwhelming feeling of flashbacks. And how I can explain it today, it was almost like God put his hand like on my shoulder. Like he was like, hey, I'm here. I'm here now. And I explained that because it was such a overwhelming, very strong presence that touched me in a way that made me think about all of the things that had happened in my life that I honestly had put down so far in the memory bank that I just was like, how did I get here? How did I get to be right here in this moment on this beautiful patio with my children playing a couple of feet away, laughing, giggling, happy? And I'm thinking, my God. So just to give you some background, my grandmother migrated from the Dominican Republic to Puerto Rico with 5 children and her mom. When she got to Puerto Rico, she was able to set up shop for her kids and her mother, my great-grandmother. And then from there, she had one more baby. So now it was 6 kids, my great-grandmother and her, traveling to Miami. And I thought, my goodness, this strong Dominican immigrant woman did all of this. She got denied at the visa office twice, if I'm not mistaken, before she attempted to reapply. Finally, when she got her visa, it was a wrap. She knew that she just needed an opportunity to get her foot in the door. And the moment that she got that foot in the door, she started moving. She started moving the puzzle pieces to get me to where I am today. And I tell this story because my grandmother, coming from the Dominican Republic with 6 kids and her mother, that means that they were a household of 8. 8 children that weren't even, they were all basically high school and younger. So they were not like full-fledged adults. They were all still pretty much children in the eyes of the law, because they were all under 18 at least. And her mother and her. And yet, even knowing that, when my grandmother made it to the when my grandmother made it to Miami, even in knowing all of that, when my grandmother made it to Miami, she set up so much for the Dominican community in Miami that growing up, we just thought she was just, you know, helping people, and people just knew her. And growing up in Miami, everyone just knew Mercedes. Like, everyone just knew her. But when she passed away in 2020, and so many people spoke about her, so many people spoke about who she truly was, she was a pioneer. She was a woman that helped so many Dominicans, that she had a small efficiency in the back of the house that she rented in Miami with her family of 8 to help new coming Dominicans to Miami. If you were Dominican and you arrived somehow on the United States soil, and you were in Miami somewhere, somehow, whoever was there to receive you would literally say, you need to go see Mercedes. You need to go see Mercedes. She's gonna set you up with a little stay. She's gonna set you up with a job. She's gonna get you food. She's gonna get you clothes. You need to go see her, and she's gonna get you right. And people would do this, and she would have people stay for 3 months until they could get on their feet. And I'm telling you guys this because I'm thinking of the type of strong, resilient matriarch that she was in my life, and how all of this have come super full circle for me. So as I'm sitting here and I'm listening to my children play in my home, I'm thinking, my God, what all did my grandmother have to endure to get me right here? Her American-born grandchild, her 3 American-born great-grandchildren in this beautiful home that my husband and I have built. It led me back to what would have happened if she wouldn't have got out of the Dominican Republic. What would have happened if she would have said, you know what? I got denied the visa once. I'm not doing it again. It was too much money. This is my life. This is the sign. This is what I'm going to do. And boom, I'm here. What would have happened if she just would have given up? Would I be here? Would my children be here? Would I have this full circle moment? Like, hold on. And that really triggered this whole awakening. It's a moment where I felt like God really was like, okay, I know you've been doubtful, but let me show you now. And so in my life, I have had so many things happen since I was a young kid that, just to put it simply, for example, if I was always a very studious, very educated, my mother never had to help me with homework. She never had to worry about whether my schoolwork was going to get done. My projects were always perfectly presented. I would sit and cut my construction paper so straight that I never wanted my presentation to look sloppy. Even though I'm in the 2nd grade, but I would just be so meticulous about my work, about my schoolwork, about anything that I put out there that had my name on it. I wanted to always make sure that it was the best. I always won all of the awards at the end of every award ceremony. At the end of every year, I would take home all of the awards. When I was in middle school, I was named salutatorian. Me and this other boy who was the valedictorian in this inner city middle school in Miami, we both were neck and neck. So he ended up taking the valedictorian spot, but I was number 2. I was salutatorian, to the point where I had to speak at my middle school graduation. Now I'm 13, giving a speech to an auditorium filled with people. And I've always felt this presence, like somebody or something was always watching over me. And when I say things would happen, I would say, because I was so studious, things would never slip. There's nothing that I could have said, oh my God, I forgot about that homework. Oh my God, the project was due. Like when people show up to class and they'd be like, oh my God, the project is due today? What? That was never me. But there was this 1 or 2 times that I overlooked what I had written on my planner. I guess I thought I was in the wrong week, or maybe I thought I was on the wrong day. But whatever happened, I woke up that morning and I would literally be like, oh my gosh, that paper is due today. Oh my gosh, that project is due today. Oh my gosh. And now I'm getting dressed to go walk to the bus stop. So I don't have time to pull together a whole presentation because I got 20 minutes to get to the bus stop. Y'all, I would get to the bus stop. I would be panicking. I'm like, my anxiety's through the roof. I'm like, oh my God, this paper is due. It's X amount % of my grade. Oh my God, what is going to happen? Like, what is going to happen? How am I going to explain this to my teacher, who already knows that I'm a pretty good student? But I also didn't want them to think that because I knew I was a pretty good student, that I was trying to like manipulate a situation or take advantage of them because I knew I was a pretty good student. So I just didn't want to come off like I'm just disrespecting, because when it came to some teachers, I hold them at such a high regard, because I was like, I remember being a kid thinking, I can never do this job. You got all of these different personalities in here. You don't know what child is getting what kind of love. You don't know what child was getting what kind of discipline. And they basically are just like, they're just kind of getting whoever and whatever. You have no idea. So you just don't know. And as a teacher, being able to navigate your emotions and your feelings, that's a pretty big job. That is a big job. So I remember being like in 1st and 2nd and 3rd grade thinking I could never be a teacher. Never. But God is funny, because you can tell him your plans, but we'll get on that later. So anyways, I would wake up, I would get there, I would get to school and I'm panicking, my chest is tight. I'm like, oh my goodness, what is going to happen? Walk into the class, substitute teacher. I would be like, oh my God, thank God. I would just be praying like, thank God. I would be praying because I would think, what are the chances of that? Like, what are the chances that the 1 or 2 times that it would literally, like I wasn't blatantly trying not to do it. It would just escape my brain and I would never think about it again. And boom, a substitute teacher would be like, and I would be like, hey, do we need to turn in the project? No, the teacher was sick this morning. She said, you guys need to have it in 2 days because we're on a every other day schedule. So that would literally give me 48 hours to work on the presentation. And once I got that extra time, baby, it was A+, okay? I knocked it out of the park because I knew that I would not get that opportunity again should it happen again. And it would happen again because, again, I would forget. And this is like within years later. So, and I would be thinking like, oh my God, panicking, thinking, and something would happen where it wasn't due that day. So I would go home and work on it and then knock it out of the park. Another instance, and this is really silly, but again, it's just another way that God was basically giving me a lot of favor. I always said that I could not wake up early. Like, I am just such a late riser. My husband and I, we go back and forth because he could wake up at 6 a.m. He is all about the early bird getting the worm. He is all about getting up early, maximizing the day, seizing the day. But then he want to come home and take a nap at like 3 p.m. And at that point, I'm ready to take on the day. So we've always been very opposite in our approach about just waking up. He could just wake up and be about his day. I'm groggy. I'm like, oh, I just can't do it. And I remember when we were dating, he said something along the lines like, you know, you're in college, right? Like, when you graduate, you're going to have to get a job. And in getting this job, you're going to have to wake up early. And I was like, man, I'm going to have to get a job that is going to allow me a lot of flexibility, because I just can't do it. I don't know how people wake up every single day at 5 a.m. to be at a job at 8 a.m. and be there till 5 p.m. Like, I just don't know how people do that. Like, it just seems so draining, and it just seems so hard to do. I graduated from college. The first job I get it like as an agency. I was working for an agency. They put me at this company. They're like, hey, they just need you for a receptionist for like 2 weeks. Cool. After the 2 weeks was done, hey, they want you to come back and help another person that left for like a shoulder surgery, and they just need you to do data entry. They just want you to put some information in. Cool. Did that for about 3 or 4 weeks because she was out for a long time. Then they would call me back. I was like, hey, we want to consider, you know, you staying with this person that you assisted. She said you did a great job. Fast forward, I was working from home before the pandemic, like at least 9 years before the pandemic. So in 2011, when I graduated college and I had to start my big girl job, I worked from home. So I would literally roll over, log into my computer, and start work. So I didn't have to be up at 5. I could be up at 8:55 to log in at 9. Do you get what I'm saying? I had never, ever had a job that I needed to be at. Strictly disciplinary, like, hey, this is the time and you need to be punctual. Never, ever. Because for a long time, I would say, there's no way I can take a job like that. Like, I guess I'm just going to be being homeless, because there's no way that I could take a job that will require me to be somewhere at 8 in the morning. And lo and behold, I remember my boyfriend, my husband now, he was just like, dog, how did you do this? Like, how did you get the cheat code? You got the cheat code to life. How? I've been working for X amount of years, and these companies have really, you know, they just take advantage. And I was like, I don't know. I really don't know. So then from there, so many things have happened, to the point where with my grandmother, helping all of these Dominican people, knowing her story, knowing her life's trajectory, I wanted to be a foreign service officer. I wanted to go into diplomacy. I wanted to be one of those people who approved or rejected families from coming together and from coming to the United States. I wanted to work at the United States Embassy. I wanted to be an ambassador. I wanted to, and I didn't know what that word meant, what that major meant, but I knew that if my grandmother was at an immigration office, I want to know who are the people that are saying yes and no. Who is it? What's the process? How do you do it? What's the how does it work? You know? And I remember thinking when I got to my senior year of college, senior year of high school, the schools that I was looking at, they're like, what do you want to do? And when I would explain it, they'd be like, oh, that sounds like political science. That might be what you want to do, is political science. And that's when I got the mindset of like, oh yeah, political science. That sounds, yeah, I want to learn about the science of politics. Yeah, that sounds about right. So I went through my life and through college as a political science major. In my sophomore year of college, I needed to get a job. My mom had lost her job. I'm in college. I'm living in the dorms. And I felt like I needed to help her. I had gotten so many scholarships, over $40,000 in scholarships, in Hispanic scholarships, because at that time, not a lot of students were actually, not a lot of Latino students were actually applying themselves and going to college. Not a lot of Latino students were even making it through high school. So there was so much wealth in some of these programs and businesses giving away all of this free money, and they just needed the people to apply. And because I was always so studious, always so educated, always knew how to write papers, I could show up and take a test and not have studied for it. And I know this now, and I knew that that was just who I was. So because there were so many Latino students missing out on the opportunity to maximize on free money, I got it all. I got $10,000 every year from the Ronald McDonald House I Said program. I got $10,000 every year from the HSF fund. I got $10,000 from Coca-Cola every year. And I got this scholarship from this law firm here locally that they only award one student a year. And they had already chosen their person. But my essay was so captivating for them that it was the first year that they actually awarded 2 students with $10,000 each. Now, like, where did that come from? So I had over $40,000 in scholarships. And I remember that even though once school got paid for and the dorms and I would get my refund check, I would help my mom with her rent or things at the house because I was living on campus and I wanted to make sure she was okay. And I remember going to this job posting, and I get there and I had to take a train. I had to take a bus to get there from the campus. And I remember walking in, and it was like this dimly lit office space. And I'm walking and I'm meeting the person I'm supposed to be interviewing with. And they're like, yeah, it's a call center and you're going to be talking to people. And I'm thinking, okay, how am I going to do this with my full-time class schedule? I mean, I had a full load. How am I going to do this? They needed somebody full-time. I was thinking, okay, I could just work 8 to 4. I think the shift was like 8 to 3 or something. And then maybe I'll just do evening classes, which would completely change my whole collegiate experience. Because at that point, I was getting really involved on campus. And I just remember the interviewer looking at me. He goes, why are you here? Why are you here? He looked at me straight face. Why are you here? And I said, well, I need a job. You know, I need to help my mom, and I'm in college and things are expensive as a college student. He goes, what do you want to do? I said, well, currently I'm in school for political science. I want to be a diplomat. I want to work at the United States Embassy abroad. I want to be able to figure out how to get to the visa adjudication office and figure out who are those people that stamps approve and reject. That's exactly how I said it. I had no names. I had no titles. I did not know. I'm a sophomore in college. I barely just learned about political science. Okay. So to me, I'm just like, look, this is what I'm trying to do. And I need this job because I need to make sure that my mom is straight at the end of the day. And he goes, got it. And he goes, you know what? My uncle is the ambassador in Nicaragua. I said, I'm sorry, come again, what? He said, yeah, my uncle is the ambassador of Nicaragua. Let me call him. He grabs his phone and he calls him. And he goes, yeah, I have a young lady here who wants to do foreign service. He said foreign service. That was the first time I heard foreign service. And she's trying to interview with me, but she really wants to be a foreign service officer like you. Can you talk her through how you got to where you are? And I remember thinking, what is happening right now? How is this happening? What is going on? And so the uncle gets on the phone with me and he's like, hey, how are you? I said, you're the ambassador to Nicaragua. Like, I don't even feel worthy enough to be speaking to you. And he goes, look, you're not going to take this job because you're not going to take this job. What you're going to do is I'm going to send you this website. You're going to look it up. You're going to apply for this internship, and you're going to start your career in foreign service that way. What? Huh? What are you talking about? There's a link on the United States government website. There's this internship. You can intern. It's paid. You can pick whichever post, which post means location, now that I know that. And you can decide where you want to be, and applications is about to open, by the way. Okay. So the guy obviously does not give me the job, but he gives me all of this information. I go home, I sit with this information. I'm like, let me just look it up. Lo and behold, applications were about to start. They were about to start getting applications. It's a paid internship. And I'm thinking, well, I do need an internship. I am in college, and internships were the hot topic. So I'm like, okay, let me apply. Let me just see. Applied, got through the first round. I was like, okay, hold on now. Got through the second round of providing a bunch of information and things like that. Okay, what's going on here? The third round was to meet with like Secret Service agents at a public place, which they chose the library of the school, of the university that I attended. They chose the library. And I remember walking into the library like, oh God, this better not be no scam. Like, this better not be no nothing, you know? And it was this guy. He was like in a long trench coat, kind of very Secret Service like. And he goes like this to me, and I go over to him. And he basically is just interviewing me in person to make sure that I'm the person that I said I was on the application. They interviewed me about my mom. They interviewed me about my dad. They interviewed me about my grandmother. They wanted to know who I was before they allowed me any kind of clearance. This was the secret clearance stage. So basically it's like you have the internship kind of, but we need to make sure you can even pass the security clearance. And I'm sitting there nervous. I have never had an experience this nerve-wracking. Now, normally I can knock out presentations, and normally I can take a test without studying, and normally I can kind of BS any topic if I needed to. I can pull from places that I've experienced, but I never experienced this kind of like, whoa, I gotta tighten up. And I'm 19 years old. Okay, I'm 19, thinking, whoa, this is a different type of caliber of a person, and I need to be on my P's and Q's because I can F this up. I can fumble this. I get the internship, y'all. And guess what post I chose? The Dominican Republic. Santo Domingo. I chose Santo Domingo, and they put me there. And when I tell y'all, it was such a full circle moment to walk through the doors of the same building. It was the same building. They just recently renovated it in the last like 10 years. Shortly after I did my internship there. But I'm walking through the same corridors and walls and hallways that my grandmother walked through. Because I wanted to know, who are the people that say yes or no? And when I tell you that internship changed my whole life, I was sitting there thinking, my God, how did I get here to this internship? I would have never had known about this internship had I never went to that interview and had I never spoke up about what exactly I wanted to do. And I worked in the visa department. I was doing fingerprints. I was looking at people's reviews. I was looking up like their judicial systems and making sure people didn't have past criminal records. I was in there. I was going to the ambassador parties. I worked with the Marines. I worked with the Navy. Like, I worked with so many different people. I worked with American Citizen Services, that when you lose your passport in a foreign country, what do you need to do? You go to the embassy, and then the embassy will issue you one once they confirm that you are who you say you are. I worked all of those departments. I worked in the visa, ones where people just wanted to come to travel, or if you wanted to just come and you're in a band or you're in a church group. There are certain type of visas, office for that. And then there was the permanent residence. It was the 90-day fiance type visas, like K1. That was a whole nother side. And I remember thinking, my God, how did I get here? I lived in the Dominican Republic for about 3 months, working every single day, 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. And I loved it. My grandma, when I would call her, she would be so happy. She was just like, wow, that's amazing. My granddaughter works for the office that denied me a couple of times, and the only way she could even get to be working in there, it was so full circle. And I would spend most of my summers in the Dominican Republic. So the best part about it is that I can speak the language, I know the slang, and my dad allowed me to drive his car to and from work every single day. And my dad allowed me to stay in his home while he went between Miami and the DR. So while I was there in the DR, he was not there the entire time. So I had to learn how to live, eat, thrive in this country that was my maternal country because of my grandmother, but it was not my country in terms of my environment of growing up in Miami. So, and it's a different level of dog eat dog world out there. So I had to have the mindset and the capabilities to know, because where the embassy was and where I was residing was across a bridge. And how they would determine in the DR, they were like, oh, you live on the other side? Oh, you live on the other side? When people would find out that I lived on the other side, they were like, oh, that's kind of dangerous. But I knew that I was protected. Number one, I was protected because I was an American working at the embassies. And most people are very smart out there to know not to F with an official like that. And number two, I was protected. So nothing ever happened. I lived the 3 months out there, and it was amazing. It was glorious. I would get paid in dollars and spend in pesos. I would get paid on Fridays, and I would be that weekend exploring a new city, to the point where I think I know more about the Dominican Republic and all of its little cities and towns than most people in my family, than most of my aunts and uncles, at least, because they left so early on and they really hadn't traveled back. But because I would go every summer and I got this internship, I was really able to thrive and learn about the country and learn about the different cities. And every weekend from Friday to Sunday, I was somewhere exploring. And I remember when I got to the DR for this internship, my grandma, she helped me before I could even get my first check. She gave me some money. She had one of her servants, someone that she kind of raised since he was a little boy because his family had abandoned him. And this is another part of my grandmother where she had the things and the capabilities and the resources to take care of other people's kids, despite having 6 of her own. She had this gentleman come and bring me almost $500 or $600 in pesos, so that I could just at least survive for the 2 weeks until I could get paid. And I'll never forget that. I'll never forget that. And so I'm telling you guys my testimony, and I know I got really long-winded on the job, because that's just one facet of how God has really given me a lot of favor. And I had a client, because now I'm no longer in the political science world. However, I did gain a lot of friendships, and I did gain a lot of knowledge and experience from that experience. And I just realized that was just a part of my story to get me to be right here again, to get me to tell you guys this story on camera, to tell you why my grandmother was so important and how so many experiences in my life had led me to this moment. I had a client, now that I'm an interior designer, by the way, tell me, you know, Janelle, favor ain't fair. Favor is not fair. And I was like, well, what do you mean by that? And she says, you think it's all a big coincidence. How things just keep happening to you. And you just keep thinking, oh, wow, that was a coincidence. What are the chances of that? But it's not. It's that God has had such a covering over you that now you get to understand why you have had all of the experiences you have had. And I sit there with that, and I cried. I sobbed. I cried so hard a river would have been jealous. I cried so many tears, like the ocean would be like, sis, okay, now we're good over here. Because I was hysterical thinking about my life, thinking about my path, thinking about how I got right here. And it was a feeling of overwhelmingness, a lot of pressure in my chest. I feel a lot of love. I feel a lot of peace. I would wake up and be kind of angry and annoyed that I had to get my daughters up for school, and now I got to wake up early and get them to school, and I already didn't want to have children. I already didn't want to get married. And then my husband that I meet at Walmart on a whim, y'all, on a whim, okay? I was just walking in to get something. I was walking out, and I meet him. I'm 18 years old, right before I started college, and we see each other, and we're like, you seem like a pretty cool guy. He's like, you seem like a pretty cool girl. We exchanged numbers, and we were friends for a long time before we were like, okay, I think we like each other enough to want to be around each other more. And I'm thinking, telling him, hey, you know, I don't want to get married. So if you're trying to go down that path, please, I'm not your girl. 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 And he's like, yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. To the point where I ran away several times from the relationship. Like, I don't want to do this. And he still remained super faithful. And I'm thinking, what man is going to continue to kind of be there, even though I'm telling him, hey, this is not the life you want. It's not the life I want. He is older than me, so it made sense why he was so patient with me. And in that, I realized that God was making him patient so that we could be where we are today as a unit. And I have so much love and appreciation for my family today. We have a great time as a family. I have so much love and appreciation for my friends. My mom decided to move from Miami to Atlanta my freshman year of high school. And that could have been a moment where any other child would have rebelled. Any other child, you know, changing your whole environment when you've been with the same people for about 8, 9, 10 years since elementary school. Now my freshman year of high school, you're moving me away. That was the best decision my mother could have made for me. And she moved here with no one, not one family member here. She slept on people's floors. I stayed with my aunt for 8 months down in Miami until I could finish out my 8th grade year. And she surprised me at the 8th grade graduation where I was giving my speech. She walks in like a scene out of a movie. And I see her as I'm giving my speech. I'm looking up and she's walking in. And I see my mother, who had been gone trying to make a better life for me in Atlanta for 8 months. I had not seen my mom. And it was always me, her, and my brother. And I almost broke down, but I realized I had to finish my speech so that so that by the time I wrapped it up, I could go backstage and cry and sob. I couldn't believe she was there. And by the time my mom brought me back up to Atlanta, she had everything set up. She had an apartment. We had 2 bedrooms. My brother at that time, now he's older, he wanted to stay in Miami. But she had me set up. I had a bedroom set. I had everything set up. I walked in and I had a whole bedroom set. I couldn't believe it. And I remember thinking, okay, now I got to start school here. How is that going to go? And when I tell you, within the first year, I had a teacher who was like, hey, I think you should meet this person. I think you guys will connect. And we did. She was right. She's my best friend. And I think about, where would I have been had my mom not brought me to the city that we currently made home here in Atlanta, in the suburbs of Atlanta. We could have went anywhere else. But where she set up shop, and the people that I met due to her setting up shop in this city, I just feel like they're my soulmates. Just feel like we're so aligned in our thinking that I'm thinking, how were we not friends before? It was so surreal. And I have so many stories to share, but I wanted to just talk through how God really gave me all of these flashbacks. And I started reading my Bible, and now I look at it like an autobiography. I look at it like, wow, man, like when I'm reading some of these books, I'm like, oh no, like Peter, like Jesus told him, hey, you're gonna denounce me 3 times. As soon as the rooster calls, you're gonna denounce me 3 times. And Peter broke down because he knew he was Jesus, and they were gonna try to crucify Jesus. That's deep. That you know that that's Jesus because he told you what was going to happen. And it's happening, and you're like, oh my God, they don't understand. They about to crucify this man, and he is the Messiah. That was deep. Because now I'm reading it with a whole open mind. Now I'm reading it like, oh my God. Oh my goodness. Wow. I understand now. So hopefully you guys have sat through this, and hopefully you guys have been able to get to know a little bit more about me. I hope to share more about my path with Jesus. I hope to share more about my path as a mom, more about my path as a wife, and more about my path as a woman. Those other titles don't really, they define me, but they don't make everything about me. And also my love for interior design. I am an interior designer full time, and I want to be able to share those things, but I cannot hop back on these different platforms and not start from the beginning. Not start from what has happened in the last 2 months and who I am today. I have been reborn again. I feel like I'm a new person. My whole mindset is completely different. How I think, how I operate, how I live at peace, it's a different type of overwhelming feelings. I feel it in my chest all the time. I get so excited thinking about what God is going to do for me. I already know what he's going to do for me. I done worked on my physical appearance to lose 90 pounds, to get my teeth straight. I have varicose veins up and down my legs due to the 3 pregnancies I done had. Thank God, all healthy, all beautiful little girls. And I'm thinking, I did the physical work, God. And he's like, great. Now let me give you the spiritual work. Now you're going to be unstoppable. And I want to just relay this testimony because God is real. The Bible is real. Jesus is real. And I never, ever thought I would say that. That would have never came out of my mouth 3 months ago. So, my name is Janelli J. I hope that you guys will like, comment, subscribe if you want to see any more of who I am, who my family is, and how God has really given me a lot of favor. Thank you for watching. Peace.